Hey guys, what's going on? Paul here. Welcome back to another Cardano video. If you're new, make sure you hit the subscribe and the notification bell so you never miss any of these Cardano updates. So today I just got off a call with Chris and Nick from Cheeky Crypto, so slightly different video today. We recorded two videos actually. One is going to go over on their channel, which is me giving my perspective on what has happened last week, as well as my thoughts around Cardano and some of the other projects that I'm also looking at as well. So I will put links to that in the description. Make sure you check the guys out. And then this video, what you will see is their take on what has happened over the last week, the manipulation that's in the market, talking a bit about Cardano and also other projects that they are into, because they put out a lot of grounded content. I like that they don't go into these crazy high prices like some people do. They put out grounded content and they back it up with the charts for whatever price predictions they're looking at. So again, we talk through lots of projects that they are involved in and excited about. Some of them being Vechain is a very big one for them. Harmony One as well. They run a validator node for Harmony One. So we get to talk a bit about that as well. If you like this type of content on the channel and want to see more, make sure and let me know down below, as well as give the video a like or share it out there. So let's jump into it. Okay, so today I have Nick and Chris from Cheeky Crypto. These guys have a really fast growing channel. They talk about a wide varying degrees of different projects out there in crypto. So I think this could be very interesting to get a perspective outside of Cardano. So they're into Cardano and they also look at a lot of different projects as well. So welcome guys, great to have you on the channel.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for having us on the show, Paul.
Yeah, really appreciate it.
Great. So I suppose, look, we jump straight into it. The markets, the dip slash crash. Yeah, we'll call it a crash. What do you guys think of, I suppose, the short term and then longer term? What are your perspectives on the market right now?
Yeah, so for me, my point of view on this one is that we are still very much in the bull run. This is just a pretty standard correction that if we look at the history, we kind of expect it to happen, right? We look at the very first kind of bull cycle of 2013. We can see there was a huge crash there, actually much deeper than the one that we've had recently, before going off to then peak again at the actual peak of the bull run. We saw something similar with 2017, 2018 bull run, where there was and again another dip, not as severe as the one we've recently had. So this particular cycle, we've had this dip in the same kind of timelines around the June, July time. But again, this one seems to be in between severity in terms of 2013 and 2017. So when we start looking at things like Bitcoin's dominance, it's doing exactly kind of what it has done in the past. We look at the stock to flow model and all of those kind of good things, and it still does tell us that we are going bull rather than bear. But with that being said, if we also follow a few of these additional theories, and different kind of technical indicators, it does show us that actually we might have a little bit more pain to come before we actually go ahead and settle a little bit and going up to that peak that we're looking for, right? So it has been a bit of a shakeout, really, hasn't it, Chris?
Yeah, and I think alongside all the technicals that Nick covers on our channel, you've also got the fact that lots of whales have been dumping their bags somewhere near the top, not right at the top, but somewhere near there, and then sort of reaccumulating at the cheaper price. So for me, from a social aspect, the narrative was very negative. It seems like there's a lot of manipulation in the market. We've seen this with tweets on social media and stuff like that as well. China, again, banning crypto. It's the same narrative that we see through these different cycles. And we're starting to see that narrative sort of change now. And crypto is more positive with some of the stuff that we're seeing sort of socially on some of the news outlets and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. I'd be very similar mindset. I think a lot of what has happened is manipulation. A lot of the big guys are looking to shake people out just to increase their own bags. Like if you look at Glassnode and stuff like that, you start to see that there's a lot of the big accounts that there was Bitcoin flowing out of them into exchanges kind of 2, 3, 4 weeks ago. And now they're pulling a lot of Bitcoin off the exchanges at these lower levels. And again, like you say, we mightn't be just out of it yet. There may be a little bit more pain to come, but long term, I still think crypto is going to play a big future. And the current bull run, I still don't think we're out or it's over yet. I think we'll hit some new highs before the end of this one.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I suppose over on your own channel, Cheeky Crypto, and anyone who isn't following the guys, I will put the links down below. It's definitely worth following them if you want to look outside of Cardano. They talk about a lot of different projects, big projects that I get lots of questions on. Vechain, you guys are very big on. Harmony One, you also run a pool for Harmony One. So do you want to talk about some of the projects that you guys are bullish on for this? Maybe there's some bargains out there right now with the current crash. Always look for the, I suppose, the positive in this.
Definitely. Do you want to cover some of these off, Nick?
Yeah, sure. So we're invested in quite a list, Chris, of cryptocurrencies, right? So everything from Cardano, XRP, Polkadot, Litecoin, Chainlink, even things like Stellar, Vechain, Algorand, Avalanche, Hedera Hashgraph, Elrond, Zilliqa, Harmony One, as Paul mentioned briefly as well. And the list kind of goes on. And there are different kind of levels of different projects here, right? So there's some real gems, in our opinion, micro cap coins like DSLA, which we think is going to be a really big player in the future. And then obviously we have some really well-established projects that we're invested in, such as Vechain, right? Something that is a 5-star rated blockchain service provider. This is the only one in the world that is so heavily integrated and adopted around the world. And I think even Harmony One running a validated there has taught us a lot about how these proof of stake sharding systems are working and how you can kind of validate transactions across multiple shards as well. So yeah, there's quite a few projects that we were into, lots of different angles. It's not just something like supply chain when it comes to Vechain or Cardano and smart contracts. It kind of covers quite a few different sectors. We like to try to make sure that we have our portfolio distributed amongst those. But Chris, have I missed anything off that you would call out specifically?
Well, I think, Vechain's one of the ones that I'm really bullish on, obviously alongside Harmony and Cardano. You could probably add Singularity Net to that as well. But for me, Vechain, like Nick mentions, the only 5-star rated blockchain in the world. They've got a massive number of partnerships, and I guess the footprint isn't just in China, like some people sort of try to make out. It's worldwide, right? And they've got some very, very big partnerships that, for me, for supply chain, I think it's going to be amazing. They're doing remarkable things in that space. They've got tool chain, which allows them to onboard new partners really, really quickly. And we've seen this with Walmart China as a prime example. Something that was supposed to take months took a matter of weeks. And I expect big things for Vechain. It's one of those projects that we identified at sub 1 cent as a project to really start investing heavily in. And it hasn't let us down, and I still expect big things from Vechain. I'm a real advocate for it as a project. I think technology and the team are just immense.
Yeah, I mean, we also think about the level of degree of adoption, right, when it comes to these projects, and Vechain definitely does stand out. I mean, we take a look at, as you mentioned there, Chris, Walmart China is one clear example of something that they've done. But also you've got really big players like PwC, DNVGL. Then you've got the automotive industry also starting to utilize it in terms of BMW, Renault. And these are the kind of players in the world, right, that you don't really want to be betting against. These are choosing the right kind of partnerships strategically to be moving things further forward. So when we started to review Vechain and we start to see this very, very long list of real world adoption, it's hard to think that particular project is going to disappear anytime soon. It's not like BMW will want a short-term kind of blockchain solution. So for us, Vechain definitely does stand out from the crowd, and it's one of the biggest projects that we do talk about in terms of I guess how big our portfolios are proportionate to Vechain, and also just from the sheer number of people who are actually utilizing it around the world. So Vechain definitely does stand out from the crowd.
Yeah, I suppose Vechain is definitely one that I get a lot of questions on of what do I think of Vechain, and from everything I've seen, it's a really good project. I still kick myself that I didn't get in earlier on it, But in the current market, I will be looking to probably try and pick up some in these dips, especially if the markets go back down another bit. I will be looking to, that's definitely one project I will, because like I see with Cardano, long term, once a project is showing real world use cases and bringing in real adoption, that's where projects are going to be successful long term. Like we can see lots of coins will pump up really high in the short term, but if they don't bring the real use cases and adoption, then they're not going to sustain them levels. So that's definitely one to have a look at.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we look at when we make investments, right? Is how's it going to be used in the real world? What are the use cases? Who are they partnering with? I mean, Vechain, for example, partnering with the China national level side of things as well. So you kind of look at the string of partnerships that they've got, and if one of those partners are going to look to utilize blockchain, they're going to be using Vechain, and so are their clients as well. So there's some big firms there that as Nick mentioned, you kind of don't want to bet against. So yeah, massive on Vechain. Again, I'm still purchasing. I mean, I've got a huge amount of Vechain. It's just ridiculous. But when I see the prices where they are currently, I'm like, yeah, I've got to get back in.
We often joke that Vechain is Chris's biggest bag.
Yeah, nice. I think that is a good one for the long term anyway. And some of the other ones you mentioned was Harmony One is another one. You guys have your validator node within that. So I will put links to that down below for anyone who is holding Harmony and wants to delegate it. And the other one you mentioned as well was DSLA, was it?
LA, yeah. So both of those, right? So Harmony One's really interesting, as in it's a sharded technology, and it is doing some really interesting stuff in the space, and it has quite a few bridges being built between like Ethereum, for example, Bitcoin, and that's something that you're going to see a lot more of in the future, and is also something that's quite important when it comes to interoperability between chains, right? So Harmony One definitely does stand out from the crowd, and again, we were calling this thing out when it was again sub 1 cent, and I think actually probably forms one of our top. It's going to be one of our top 3 or 5, Chris, in terms of bags, right? So it's a very large position for us. But looking at it, it's definitely something that you want to be paying attention to. The technology there is really, really good stuff. And DSLA is another one that, again, this is I think it's sub 1 cent right now. This might not be a project that's going to do incredibly well in 2021. I think it will do well. I don't think it'll do incredibly well. But long term, and we start thinking, what the 2025 bull run is going to look like. DSLA, this is decentralized service level agreement. So for anyone in the business sector who uses SLAs, will then start to understand that service level agreements are big business. And when we start thinking about how you can put a service level agreement into something like DeFi, then you have that DSLA approach, then actually you can start to understand that you might want to mitigate against your risks utilizing a service level agreement. But what DSLA are trying to do is actually bridge the gap between the real world and the decentralized one, right? So the DSLA model and everything they're trying to go after is to also have the protocol actually working for off-chain as well as on-chain. So this is going to be something that's going to be really interesting to watch how they move further forward and how they evolve over time. They've been around for a little while, but ultimately this thing I feel has some pretty interesting stuff going on there. They've actually partnered up with Harmony One already. So you can kind of see what's going on there, and you'll be able to basically mitigate against your staking, for example, against the Harmony One validator. So if you're expecting 11% APY and you're not getting 11% APY, that service level agreement protects you from that kind of thing. And likewise, if that node goes down for whatever reason, you'll be up for compensation, because ultimately that's what the service level agreement is there for. So there's lots of things going on, and you can see there's some really good, interesting use cases for DSLA. Not just staking, but also providing I guess, what do they call it? Liquid staking, Chris?
Yeah, liquid staking, which is something that is one to start sort of investigating and researching now, because we think this will be big. And for me, you look at how many rug pulls there've been recently and that side of things. I kind of feel like this is something that's really needed in this space. So I think this project will fill a void that needs filling. I think it's ultra early, so there's an element of risk to it. But what I would say is, we've got historically we've got a really good track record of picking out decent projects at sub 1 cent. We did this with Vechain, we did it with Harmony, we've done it with Anchor. Just to list a few, and this one's the next one that we kind of feel people should be doing their research on.
Okay, yeah, it's definitely one I will put onto my list to have a look at as well, especially that if they're going across blockchain as well, because going forward, any protocol that's looking across blockchain, I think, or across protocols, is definitely got a bigger chance of success as well, because there's no one Ethereum killer, there's no one project or one chain is going to rule it all. We need interoperability across all of the chains. So any project doing something in that area is definitely worth taking a look at.
Yeah, and this was a project that we weren't actually just searching for and deciding to do research on. This was a project that we stumbled across, or I stumbled across in the respect that I was doing research on several other projects and it just kept coming up, and I was like, right, I've got to look at this one, because we kind of feel that cross chain is the next big sort of thing sort of in the space. And like you say, Paul, these are the ones that are going to be more likely to be successful, right?
Yeah. I suppose then, what's your opinions? You do a lot of charting as well over on your channel and talk about different coins. So Cardano, then ADA, what do you think lies ahead for us? That's something I know a lot of people here will be interested in.
Yeah, so for Cardano, ADA, there's lots of crazy price targets that are put out there, right? And we try to be as grounded as we can, whilst also kind of trying to see if we can validate some of those claims, right? We might see those $10, those $20, those $40 kind of price predictions. And we look at the charts and we say, okay, let's break this down. Let's assume the very best scenario. How can we possibly try to achieve these numbers? Some you can do, some you can find, okay, if this happened, then you can potentially get that. And some you just think, I don't even know how you've come up with that number. A part of you feels like you've just put your finger up in the air and say, that's the price that I'm going for. So yeah, we do look at those things. And right now I feel that, we have to be paying attention to the Fibonacci retracement zones for Cardano as we start approaching some of these key levels around the 618, the 702 and the 786, whether or not we go past those, or whether or not, if we do not, go past those levels, then ultimately we will probably set another low, a lower low, and before going back up again. And one of the things that's really interesting with this kind of scenario, because I still feel we're in a bull market, we're not bearish, we're in a bit of a correction at the moment. And, during that circumstance, when we actually, the lower we go, the higher will actually push up longer term, right? So during the bull run here, we'll actually peak out higher if we drop down lower. It sounds counterintuitive, but when we start dragging those Fibonacci's down lower, you'll actually start getting those extensions higher. So for now, if it doesn't drop any lower, then we'll probably be looking to top out at around $7 or so, I would have thought. If, however, we actually drop a little bit lower and we set a lower low, then there's the possibility of actually getting an extension up to about $10. And again, this is just from a technical point of view. Sometimes there are some fundamentals that also have to be considered, right? So the fantastic things that have been happening with Cardano over in Africa, starting off with Ethiopia and getting all those people onboarded, that potentially has a bit of an impact fundamentally that's outside of the technicals that we're currently seeing. So there could be extensions above and beyond what we've just spoken about from a technical point of view, if all of those things in the real world actually start lining up, right? But again, you're not going to see that from a technical point of view until you start actually seeing some of it actually happen in the real world. So for now, just based on the facts that we actually have on charts, we would say, okay, well, it looks like we're going to be going for about $7 at the top end for Cardano. But of course, if we drop a lower low, I could see that potentially going to an extension of about $10. And again, if we have that drop a little bit lower and we do have an extension to $10, then something happens over in Ethiopia, we get a huge amount of people onboarded, then you might actually get a little bit of an extension, maybe to 15 to 20. But I still can't get to the $40 level, not this cycle. So, you have to really break it down. What can I see right now? $7. What if something else happens? I might be able to see 10. And under the best circumstances, you might be lucky at 20. But again, right now, being grounded about $7, I feel, for Cardano.
Yeah, that's definitely a price that I think is probably far more realistic than a lot of what we're seeing out there. And I think they're the types of numbers that people should use when they're deciding should they get in, or what are the top numbers they're going to look at. Look at 7 in around that area as what you see as the top. And if we hit the 10, if we hit more, then it's a huge bonus. But again, always look a little bit lower than where all of these big crazy numbers are being put out there, and be realistic with it. Don't forget to take some profits along the way as well, because even if we do go to them big numbers, we're going to have pullbacks. So if you've taken a bit of profit along the way, you'll be able to get back in at some of the lower pullbacks as well.
That's exactly it. The exit strategy is going to be, incredibly important. Make sure you have your strategy, created almost up front, right? And they know exactly what your plans are before you get there. The worst thing to do is end up in a situation and have to panic and be a bit flustered about it.
Yeah. One thing I think is really good is you DCA into a trade, and you also DCA out on the top as well. So start taking percentages off at different milestones. And look, if it keeps going up, it's fine. You've taken profit out into your bank. So anything else you guys want to finish up with before we close it out?
Nothing from me really, Chris. What about you?
No, nothing from me. I think we love the Cardano as a project. We think they're going to do remarkably well. We're really excited about the stuff that's happening in Africa, and the partnership with Singularity Net as well, and what Coty are doing. So yeah, lots going on. I think from our side, I mean, we're invested in 29 projects, I think, off the top of my head, so quite a few, and we think there's going to be many winners in this space. And the cross chain side of things is going to be massive. That's kind of the next big thing from our viewpoint.
Yeah, well, thanks very much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And anyone who isn't subscribed to the guys, I will put the link down below, Cheeky Crypto, and you've given me a few coins I need to go out and look at as well and do a bit of research on. So thanks very much for coming on, and we'll probably do something again over the next while as well.
Fantastic.
Definitely. Thanks for having us.
Cheers, guys.